If you are watching this video, then you might have already heard about GitHub Copilot. So in this video, I am going to tell about my reviews and first thoughts on GitHub Copilot. It was developed by Microsoft in 2019. Since then it's been a tool used by a lot of programmers. After using it myself for a few months, I am going to tell you my reviews and what I think about this tool, as it might even change how software developers work in the future. What is GitHub Copilot? On GitHub Copilot's official website they have mentioned that it's an AI tool that is going to be like a pair programmer for software engineers. I think it might be true to some extent, as it has been like another junior programmer who can write some bad codes for me. As a programmer, I have to recheck everything, but I can say for sure that it does help in increasing my productivity. In simpler terms, Copilot is a machine learning agent that can help developers make blocks of code based on semantic hints and other basic directions. In theory, this will help cut down programming time significantly, which should bode well for novice developers or those who have less experience. So far, Copilot has been trained on billions of lines of code, all from projects within GitHub's development service. Copilot works by taking hints like source code, comments, and function names, then automatically completing the body of a given function with the most likely result. It's all algorithmic based, but this should allow Copilot to create code blocks for standard or rote code needs. How it works. According to what they have mentioned on their site, it can write functions just after looking at some comments and code you have written in the past as a programmer. Those functions are usually not correct all the time, but it does help not write the whole function by ourselves. Sometimes we just have to change a few parameters of the functions and it works just fine. Little about GPT-3. GitHub Copilot uses GPT-3 as its underlying technology for code prediction and completion or suggestions. You guys might have heard about it a few years back. It made a lot of fuzz in the news as it was able to write articles like humans and a lot of other things in the field of content creation. A newspaper even published an article on the official site which was written by GPT-3. I was also amazed, and it is really great technology. Similarly, GitHub Copilot uses GPT-3 to adapt to the style of how a programmer would write code. How it is adaptive for developers. It looks up to the previous code a programmer had written and then uses that code to predict and adapt according to the developer's style of coding. It not only looks at your computer files code, but also looks at repositories a programmer has forked and created. It looks at the codes of those repositories and tries to adapt to that style, and also tries to improve according to that. Mind-blowing features. One of the mind-blowing features of GitHub Copilot is that it can write whole functions just after writing some comments and heading related to the function. Usually, it is not right all the time, but it still gives me chills when it predicts the whole function I want to write. There are a lot of other features like this. It not only predicts the functions, but it also suggests 10 more functions that you might want to use in your code file. Availability. Any programmer can go to their respective IDEs, integrated development environment, and install it as an extension just as you install any other extensions in your integrated development environments. I am using Visual Studio Code and GitHub Copilot. Copilot was also announced by Microsoft. And Visual Studio Code is also owned by Microsoft, so it works pretty well with Visual Studio Code. I think it should work fine with other extensions too. After installing the extension, you have to authorize it with your GitHub account. After that, they are going to send you to a waiting list and you have to wait until you get access to GitHub Copilot extension. After waiting for some time, once you get access to it, then you can enjoy it. Languages GitHub Copilot works with? GitHub Copilot works with a lot of languages like JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, and Golang. Not only this, but they are also planning to launch it in other languages as well as the most famous C++, C# and Objective-C in the future. The legality of GitHub Copilot. There have been a lot of legal issues raised regarding GitHub Copilot. A lot of people don't like the fact that how GitHub is using other programmers' code to predict the functions, or sometimes even copying the codes written by other programmers. There is no way to credit those developers who have written those works. But GitHub Copilot project managers say that as it is using open source code, so it should not be an issue, as you cannot claim any copyrights on the open source project's code. My thoughts on GitHub Copilot in conclusion. I think GitHub Copilot is a really good tool for developers or programmers. It increases my productivity as a developer for sure. Will it going to replace developers or programmers? I don't think so. Right now it is really far from replacing the programmers, as it is still at a really early state. And programming is a really creative job. And creativity is something AI cannot copy easily.